What would you think if I told you that most women already know you're attractive, long before you do, not because of how you look, but because of how you don't look at yourself? You walk into a room and think nothing of it. You don't pose. You don't seek attention. You're not constantly flipping your hair, adjusting your shirt, checking your phone to fake nonchalance. You just exist, and in that quiet existence, you radiate something most men never realize they carry: a raw, unpolished presence. It's in the way you observe, in the way you stay still when others need to prove something, in the way you speak only when necessary, and when you do, it actually means something. That's where it begins. But you don't notice, because all your life, you've been told attraction is about being chosen, that if a woman doesn't approach, compliment you, or show obvious interest, it must mean you're not desired. That lie is the first trap. You're watching her lips for a smile, her eyes for approval, her hands for touch. You're looking for something external to tell you that you matter. But here's what no one told you. Women don't always show their attraction in ways you'd expect, especially when it's real, especially when it scares them. Because unlike the cartoonish flattery they give to men they control, when it comes to men they desire, women often go silent, awkward, even avoidant. Why? Because deep attraction isn't safe, and you're not supposed to notice just how much power you hold. You see, a truly handsome man, not just in face but in energy, in mystery, in self-restraint, is disruptive. He unsettles women. He forces them to second-guess their patterns, their leverage, their games. So when you don't chase, when you don't flirt like a trained circus dog, when you don't need validation, something in her starts to twitch. Her mask slips, and she'll test you, not because you're unattractive, but because she needs to know whether her attraction gives you power over her, or whether she still holds the reins. You've seen it happen, haven't you? That girl who acted cold out of nowhere, who flirted one week, then ghosted, who stared at you when you weren't looking, but played dumb when you noticed, who laughed too loud at your jokes but rolled her eyes when you got too close. It didn't make sense, did it? That's because she wasn't rejecting you, she was reacting to you, and her reaction terrified you, because you internalized the silence, the distance, the teasing, as proof that you weren't good enough. But here's the truth. She saw your value before you did, and that's what scared her. She couldn't play the script. She couldn't pin you down. You weren't giving her the predictable hunger she was used to. So she defaulted to control. She tried to neutralize the tension by confusing you, dismissing you, pulling you in, then pushing you away. It worked, because you didn't recognize the signs. You didn't see the blush she hid behind sarcasm, the glance she gave you in the mirror, the way her tone changed when you stood next to her, the jealousy in her questions, the shift in her posture when another woman talked to you. You didn't see any of that because you weren't trained to look for power. You were trained to look for approval. And here's the catch. Approval is loud. Power is silent. You never learned that when a woman is deeply attracted to a man, not just lust, but drawn, magnetized, derailed, she won't always make it easy. Because to do so is to surrender her position, and she only surrenders when she feels safe, when she knows the man won't use it against her, when she knows he won't crumble at the first sign of intimacy. But most men do, especially the ones like you, the ones who never knew how dangerous they actually were. You've been so busy apologizing for existing that you never saw how many rooms you altered just by walking in. So you doubt yourself. You become overly nice. You try to soften your presence. You text too much. Explain too much. Show too much. And every time you do, You lose what made you powerful in the first place, the tension of restraint. Women feel it. They won't always say it, but they feel it. They feel it when you look away instead of lingering. They feel it when you walk past them instead of orbiting. They feel it when your voice stays low, your body stays still, your gaze never begs. They feel it when you're not afraid of silence. And they talk about it. In their group chats, at brunch, after you leave the room. But you never hear those conversations, so you go home, look in the mirror, and wonder why you still feel invisible. You're not. You're just surrounded by a culture that teaches men like you to ignore your gravity. You've spent so long assuming that being handsome meant having a perfect jawline, flawless skin, or gym-sculpted muscles, that you completely overlooked the way women actually experience attraction. And here's the brutal truth. Handsomeness isn't what you think it is. It's not Instagram symmetry. It's not a six-pack. It's not TikTok thirst traps or designer watches. Those things signal vanity, not value. What women truly respond to biologically, psychologically, emotionally is presence. Not loud presence, not performative, look at me energy, but something much deeper. The presence of a man who knows who he is. A man who doesn't need to be told he's attractive. A man who doesn't wait for women to confirm what he already feels in his body. And that's the hardest part, isn't it? Because deep down, you've never been told you're allowed to feel that. You were told to chase, to prove, to beg, to earn. So when women start treating you with passive aggression, coldness, or weird emotional pullbacks, you interpret it as failure. But it's not failure. It's often fear. Fear of your indifference. Because when a man doesn't crave female validation, he's not predictable. And when he's not predictable, he's dangerous. That's when they start the games. Not to hurt you, but to restore the balance. To make sure you need them again. So they'll withhold attention, flirt with someone else, make a cruel joke about your looks in public, even criticize things they once complimented. Not because you're not attractive, but because you've become too attractive for them to control. Let that sink in. You're walking around thinking you don't measure up, while women are scrambling behind the scenes trying to figure out how to make you doubt yourself enough that you chase them again. Because that's when they feel safe. That's when they feel pretty. That's when they feel powerful. And the tragic part, you comply. You change your clothes. You soften your voice. You text back faster. You flatter her friends. You become sweeter, safer, more eager. You think it'll make her stay, but all it does is confirm her fear that you're just like the others. Hungry for approval, ready to be tamed. That's when she loses interest. Not because you're ugly, not because you failed, but because you surrendered your edge. Here's how it works. Women test men they're attracted to not to find out if the man is good looking, but to find out if he can hold frame under pressure. Because good looks without frame is just decoration, and when you give up your frame, you go from mysterious to manageable, from masculine to malleable. And she won't tell you that directly. She'll just stop laughing as hard, stop texting as often, start giving vague excuses. She won't say, "I wanted you until you got insecure." But that's exactly what happened. You were already enough, but you let her behavior rewrite your belief. You went from quietly powerful to visibly desperate. And that's when everything shifted. So you walk away thinking you weren't good looking enough, when, in reality, you were too good looking to control. And you didn't know how to hold it. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't even need to be overly confident. You just need to stop chasing clarity from someone whose entire strategy depends on you being confused. You don't need her to say you're handsome, because if you did, she wouldn't feel it. Attraction isn't about her telling you. It's about her acting weird around you and pretending she's not. It's about her over-explaining, about her stumbling over words, about her trying to act cool while her body betrays her, And that only happens when you're not chasing, when you're not signaling weakness, when you're not apologizing for being desirable. But you've been trained to apologize your whole life. You've been taught that noticing your own presence is arrogant, that valuing your own attention makes you a jerk, that waiting for effort in return is playing games. It's not. It's respect. And it's time you reclaim that. You've spent years interpreting rejection as proof that you're not good enough, but you never once asked whether the rejection was real or whether it was a defense mechanism triggered by how attractive you actually are. You thought rejection was about flaws, inconsistencies, not being her type, but that's not how it works. Rejection, when you're a man of value, isn't always about being dismissed. It's often about being disarmed. A woman can be deeply attracted to you and still reject you if she senses she can't control the outcome, if she feels exposed in your presence, if her normal strategies don't work. You confuse her silence with disinterest, her teasing with judgment, her flakiness with boredom. But what if I told you that all of those are indirect signals of attraction combined with fear? Not fear of you, but fear of what you activate inside her. You bring up things she hasn't resolved, desires she hides, standards she breaks. That's the kind of power a man holds when he is centered, detached, and quietly attractive. And instead of leaning into it, most men collapse under it, because they've been taught to see their own impact as imaginary. You've likely told yourself, if I were really that good looking, she would have said something. No, if you were average, she'd flatter you to stay in control. But when you're magnetic, and she knows it, she withholds because the moment she acknowledges it, she surrenders power. And here's where it gets darker. The world tells women to pursue equality, empowerment, freedom. But emotionally, many still crave dominance, not from the man himself, but from the attention he gives them. That attention is currency, and if you don't offer it on demand, they'll push, prod, and provoke until you give it up, until you kneel emotionally, until your eyes ask for reassurance. And the moment you do, they feel safer, but also less attracted. This is the sick paradox you're caught in. If you remain grounded, she may try to chip away at you. If you give in, she may walk away. You thought being attractive would make dating easier. In truth, it makes it more psychological. And here's the tragedy: most men never learn how to deal with that kind of attention, because they never see it as attention. You chalk it up to she's just not into me, when she's actually obsessed, but only on the condition that you never realize it. The second you step into that awareness with quiet confidence, the game resets, and she either steps up emotionally or walks away, hoping you'll become smaller again. She won't say, I lost interest because you became emotionally needy. She'll say, I just didn't feel it anymore. But what she really means is once I had power over you, the attraction faded. This doesn't make her evil, it makes her human. Women are not calculating demons, but they are biologically wired to test strength, just like you're wired to seek beauty. And when either party tries to deny those instincts, the results are miserable. You need to understand something brutal: you are more attractive when you don't know it. But you are unforgettable when you do. Not when you brag, not when you posture, but when you walk into a room, make eye contact, and feel no need to impress anyone. When you smile because you want to, not because you're trying to be liked. When you speak last, not first. When you let her squirm in the silence without rushing to fill it. That's when women start to feel it. Deep, involuntary, intense. It's not in your biceps. It's in your absence of need. It's not in your clothes. It's in your lack of apology. It's not in what you say. It's in what you withhold until earned. You don't need a new jawline. You need a new baseline of self-worth, of awareness, of masculine containment. That's what you were never taught. That's what most men are too scared to even look at, because the moment you realize you're the prize, everything changes. The way you walk, the way you speak, the way you look at women. You stop overpraising. You stop chasing lukewarm attention. You stop wondering, am I good enough? And start asking, is this even worth my energy? And here's what happens next. The women who ignored you start circling back. The ones who teased you start asking indirect questions. The ones who ghosted start liking your photos again. Because they can feel it. You're no longer a boy trying to be chosen. You're a man who knows what he brings and doesn't give it away cheaply. And you're not playing games. You're not manipulating. You're just finally operating from the truth. That truth is simple. You don't need to chase what already notices you. You've just never stood still long enough to witness it. Most men are in a constant state of motion emotionally, mentally, physically, because silence terrifies them. Stillness makes them feel irrelevant. You were taught that if you're not doing something, fixing something, or proving something, you're invisible. But here's what no one taught you. Presence doesn't need proof. Attraction is not always loud. Real desire often hides in subtle tension. It's not shown in compliments, it's shown in confusion, in repetition, in resistance. That girl who finds reasons to be around you but never makes a move. The one who keeps her distance, but watches every interaction you have. The one who jokes about you dating someone else, then stiffens when it becomes possible. You've probably mistaken all of that for disinterest, because you've been trained to only recognize attraction when it's packaged in obvious approval. But here's the game that's been played on you. Women are allowed to desire you. You're just not allowed to realize it. Because the moment you do, you stop chasing. And when you stop chasing, the power dynamic flips. And when that flips, everything she thought she controlled starts to unravel. That's why they keep it subtle. They'll wear that perfume when they know you're around, but never comment on it. They'll touch their neck more often when you're in the room, but say they're just tired. They'll bring up other guys to make you lean in, only to act like it meant nothing. They'll ask about your dating life with fake disinterest, because they're measuring whether someone else is getting what they wish they could have without surrendering pride. And if you fall for it, if you start performing again, they win. But you lose. You lose that mystery, that stillness, that masculine silence that makes them question whether they ever had you. You don't need to play hard to get. You just need to stop handing yourself away. Because the most attractive man in the room isn't the one trying to be noticed. It's the one who is already being watched and doesn't flinch. That's when the shift happens, internally. You stop waiting for validation. You start observing the signs. You realize that being good-looking isn't about conforming to some cultural mold. It's about how you make people feel in your presence. Do they feel stable, controlled, bored? Or do they feel nervous, flushed, curious? Because if people feel something just by standing near you, you've already passed the test. And here's what most men will never believe women know within seconds if they're drawn to you. They won't always act on it, but they feel it. It's chemical, primal, unexplainable. That's why she asked you a dumb question when she could have Googled it. That's why she stood too close when there was space. That's why she mocked your shirt but kept looking at your chest. That's why she kept texting even when she said she wasn't ready for anything. You thought it meant confusion. It meant you made her nervous. And nervous is a good thing. It means you're real, not a fantasy, not a puppet. You've spent years wondering how to become attractive when the truth is, you already were, you just kept handing away the proof. Every time you over-explained, every time you apologized for being misunderstood, every time you tried to make her feel comfortable at the expense of your own instincts, You've been trying to earn something you already had. And once you stop doing that, once you stop chasing certainty, stop giving away emotional access, stop letting women borrow your confidence so they can feel superior, you finally get to see what's been hidden in plain sight. You get to see who leans in, who laughs differently, who stares when they think you're not looking, who suddenly finds reasons to be around you, and most importantly, who starts to compete. Not compete with other women, but compete with your detachment, because nothing disturbs a woman more than a man who sees her clearly and still chooses restraint. That's the mark of real handsomeness. Not beauty, not symmetry, not charm, but the self-control to know you are desired and not let that desire control you. And when you operate from that place, you don't need to prove, you don't need to pretend, you don't even need to speak much, because she already knows. She knew before you did. Here's where everything changes, not in how the world sees you, but in how you see yourself. You've spent your whole life in reactive mode, reacting to silence, reacting to teasing, reacting to rejection. You kept adjusting your value based on the signals you got from women, but those signals were often smoke, not fire. They weren't indicators of truth. They were tests, designed to keep you uncertain, so they could feel more certain. You thought if a woman flirted then went cold, you had done something wrong. No, that was a test, a check, a way to gauge if your confidence was real or just conditional. Conditional on her attention, conditional on her approval. And the moment you started doubting yourself, she got the answer. That's why so many women lose interest after you start trying harder, because your effort doesn't signal confidence, it signals insecurity trying to fix the emotional gap. You think it's love, they feel it as instability, but the man who is rooted, the one who sees the confusion, feels the shift, and doesn't flinch becomes unforgettable. He becomes the man she regrets losing, even if she was the one who walked away. And that's the thing no one told you. Attraction is not about being chosen, it's about choosing who gets access. You gave access too easily, not just to your body, to your time, your emotions, your curiosity, your belief in her words, your self-image. You were generous because you thought that would make you lovable. But she didn't want generosity. She wanted strength, calm, boundary. She wanted to feel like earning your attention meant something. And when she didn't have to, she resented you for it. The part that stings the most, the part no one says out loud, is that you probably already had everything you needed. The looks, the voice, the presence. But you spent so much time seeking confirmation that you gave away your edge before she even had the chance to feel it. You taught her to treat you like an option by never showing her you had standards. You taught her to ignore your worth by not believing in it yourself. That ends now, not with some artificial swagger, not with fake bravado or playing hard to get. It ends with a quiet, final shift. You stop chasing answers. You stop overthinking signals. You stop trying to decode every action, because it doesn't matter. What matters is how you carry yourself before anyone else confirms your value. You don't need to ask if you're attractive. You know the effect you have on a room. You don't need to over-engage. You let others come forward. You don't need to explain your silence. You let it speak for itself. You don't give your attention like a free sample. You give it when it's earned. And you understand now when women act confused, withdrawn, hot and cold. It's often not rejection. It's instability meeting stability. Emotional chaos meeting emotional containment. You were never supposed to match her chaos. You were supposed to stay still and let her orbit you, not because you're superior, but because you're secure. That's what real handsomeness is, security that doesn't flinch when someone tries to shake it. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to ask for permission. You don't need to be validated by a woman who's still figuring herself out. You are more handsome than you think, not because someone said so, but because you stopped needing them to. And the moment you stopped, the moment you pulled back, stood firm, and didn't need to be noticed, that's when they noticed everything. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.